Hi Roxy, it helps if you go backwards on number 37. So if you recall from lecture when we looked at the tangent function for the standard cut, on the tangent function, we had to restrict the domain from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Not including the endpoints, and remember the range was all real numbers. All right, so when you do the arctan, that's going to be the flip of that. So meaning if the output is pi over 4, oh, let me just add one other point here. So when we restrict a domain, that means then this is the restriction for the tangent. Then for the arctangent, it's inverse. Remember, the domain and the range flip. The domain and the range flip for its inverse. So now this means the domain is all real. As you can see, the arctan, the domain's all real. But now the range is going to have to stay between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. And that's really important because that means that you can only give answers that fall, if you think of a rotational axis, you can only give answers that fall up to pi over 2, not including pi over 2, and down to negative pi over 2, not including negative pi over 2, because remember, that's where the asymptotes would have been. All right, so when you answer this question, let me just write out a little more information here. So when you answer this question, so if it says something pi over 4, that means arctan of what? Right, arctan of something is equal to pi over 4, or another way to think about that is tangent of pi over 4 under the restriction equals to what? Under the restriction equals to what? Well, if you have tangent of pi over 4, that's going to be your 1, 1 radical 2, or 1 over 1, which is 1. So this is going to have to be 1, because tangent of 1 is pi over 4, therefore arctangent of 1 equals pi over 4. Okay, let me see what the other one is. So then if you have something comma negative pi over 6, you have to remember, you have to stay within these restrictions here because of, right, to be an inverse, it means each x goes to exactly 1 y, each y goes to exactly 1 x, so it has to pass both the vertical and the horizontal line test. So you have to stay within these restrictions so it passes both those tests. So here, let me just draw a little, let me draw a fresh one so you can see it. So now if you go to negative pi over 6, you're rotating down this way. Right, you're rotating down this way. Pi over 6 is always across from the 1, the 30 is across from the radical 3, and the hypotenuse is a 2. So if you're at negative, so another way to think of this one, if you have arctan of something equals to negative pi over 6, then you're trying to find the tangent of negative pi over 6. Okay, and the tangent of negative pi over 6. So first of all, you're in quadrant 4. So what is the plus or minus of tangent in quadrant 4? Good, it's negative. So that's negative. Because you're in quadrant 4, remember the tangent is negative in quadrant 2 and 4, positive in 1 and 3. Okay, and then you need to give the sides of this triangle. So they want the tangent. So the opposite over the adjacent, it's 1 over radical 3, or if you want, you could say negative radical 3 over 3. It's up to you if you want to rationalize it or not. I'll write negative radical 3 over 3. And it should make sense, right? This x value is to the left, this y value is down. They're both negative. Okay, so that one's negative radical 3 over 3, or again, you could just write it as negative 1 over radical 3. All right, now the last one, the last point, they're saying negative radical 3, and they want to know the output value. And again, it all goes back to the fact that if you're talking about arctan, you have to stay in between these two quadrants. So if you're in this one, it's impossible for it to be anything to be negative, right? Because everything's positive here. So you must be down here in quadrant 4. Okay, so you're in quadrant 4. That's where the negative is coming from. So this is saying they want arctan of negative radical 3 equals to something, or meaning tangent of something equals to negative radical 3. That's what you're trying to figure out. So that means that your opposite's a radical 3 and your adjacent is a 1. And again, you're in quadrant 4. So if you're across from radical 3, what angle does that have to be? Good. That has to be 60 or pi over 3. Let's say pi over 3. That's a little better for arcs. But you have to rotate downward because you have to stay within these restrictions here. So you can't go all the way around in standard position. Okay, you can't do that. You can't say like 5 pi over 3. That's wrong, because 5 pi over 3 doesn't fall in these restrictions. So that means you have to rotate down. So you have to say negative pi over 3. You have to say negative pi over 3. Okay, Roxy, I hope that helped. If I didn't explain something as clear as you needed, or you need me to repeat myself, you just let me know. Give me a holler and I'll make you another video. Okay, bye-bye.